Welcome everyone to our Artist Exchange event today. My name is Shelley Rugg. I'm the gallery coordinator for Gallery Route 1. And let's see. Today, we will be hearing from two artists, and Pamela Blotner will be our host. And before we get started, let me just remind you to stay muted unless we ask you to unmute. And for best viewing, choose the speaker view from the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom viewing screen, although you can change to gallery anytime you would prefer it. And let me tell you about Pamela Blotner, who is our host today. Pamela is an artist, educator, and curator who lives and works in the Bay Area. In her Berkeley studio, she creates sculptures and drawings that explore humankind's relationship with nature, science, calamity, and healing. She has worked as a sculptor illustrator for the Houston Zoo in Houston, Texas, and as an illustrator for Human Rights Watch, Physicians for Human Rights, and the UC Berkeley Human Rights Center, Art for Conservation, and the Leatherback Trust. Blotner's work has been exhibited in Europe, Asia, Africa, and throughout the United States. She has taught at a number of universities, including the University of Chicago, University of Maryland, Tufts University, University of San Francisco, California College of Art, the San Francisco Art Institute, and Pixar University of Pixar Animation Studios. In 2018, she was appointed a U.S. Arts envoy to Burma and Laos. Blotner is co-curator and founder with me, Preckler, of Artists Beyond Boundaries. So please join me in welcoming Pamela Blotner.
Thank you, Shelley. That was lovely. And thank you all for coming and welcome. We hope you enjoy our presentation. Today we have two wonderful artists, both of whom I've known for quite some time, so I can vouch for them. They're both good eggs. First, I think I'll start with Mary because Robbie's going to talk first. Mary White, or Mary B. White, is a Bay Area artist with a BFA in Spatial Arts and Ceramics from California College of Art, including a year that she spent in Mexico studying Michoacan ceramics. She returned, she taught screen printing and graphic design at Oakland High School for several years before she went back to CCA to get her master's degree in painting and in glass. After leaving CCA, she taught at San Jose State University for 19 years and set up their glass area. When she retired from there, she spent a year in Colorado and a year as a Fulbright scholar in Dublin, Ireland, teaching and doing a number of other things. And returning to the US, she helped start the Crucible program. And for those of you who don't know, the Crucible was a nonprofit industrial arts school located in Oakland. And she began teaching eco arts at St. Mary's, where she helped build a garden, St. Mary's College. And she's been working on large outdoor installations ever since, and has been a member of the board of WEAD, Women Eco Artist Dialogue, for the past 20 years. Please turn away from Mary for a minute and look to Robert Abrams, who is a lifelong resident of the Bay Area. He loves his work as the owner and curator of his namesake gallery. Robert moved his practice to the area 21 years ago and has been curating shows for 15 years. Along with 40 years of of retail experience, Robert has an MFA in sculpture and an undergraduate degree in psychology from Cal. He is also partial owner of the Potter's Studio in Berkeley and Mudworks Pottery in El Cerrito. He has taught at Laney College and Mill Valley Potter's Studio. Recently, he has been appointed to the City of Albany Art Community. So with that, I want to turn our attention to Robert, who's going to talk about his work and his process.
Did you also want me to talk a little bit about the gallery?
Yes, please. And I'm particularly interested, as I think all of you guys will be, about the interface between being a working artist and a gallerist and curator.
Okay. So the gallery, I've had the gallery for about 6 years now. And the gallery is, primarily a place for early career artists, although I do show established artists, like currently Elizabeth Addison and Vicki Gunter and Pamela Blotner, amongst others. But we do run a program for people who've never shown before, who have very little experience in that. And I came to the gallery much like I come to my art. I came to the gallery essentially accidentally. I wasn't planning, I wasn't searching actively to open a gallery, but the opportunity came. And since I had been curating for, at that point, I don't know, 10, 15 years, it just was something that seemed like this is what I should do next. And I really enjoy being part of the artist community and supporting other artists. And although I do hear a lot from some members of my family that I should show my work here, that's not what this gallery is for. And quite frankly, the gallery has kept me so busy that I don't have much time to make my own work. And another thing I currently do is I'm currently in charge of also the Laney College Gallery, and I teach ceramics there. And occasionally I've taught at the Crucible as well. I love that place as an institution. The current body of work, I'm going to share my screen here. The current body of work that I want to talk about actually goes back a number of years to some of my ceramic work. This I was working on about 2012, I think. I started a series that I called Comfortable Shapes. And it included huts and houses, yurts as part of it. And they were small scale. Can you see this? Small scale. And also some larger pieces. And bottles and pillows as well. But it's the houses ones that I'm showing you today because I decided about a year ago, partially subconsciously, to revisit the home vision from this series. It was familiar to me. How am I supposed to go through this? Aha, there we go. So here are some of the other images from that. These are wood-fired ceramics. They're between about 5 and 12 inches tall, depending on the piece. And the way I approach art often is I just make something. The idea of making something specifically from my brain doesn't really work. It feels too deliberate and too contrived. So I just sit down and I start making. And these are what came out. And then I also feel that my work isn't complete until it's part of a conversation. So I show my work to people and they respond. And then I get feedback and then it evolves based on that. So when people were looking at my yurts, some people saw it as a breast. And so then I started making them more and more deliberately that way. And about a year ago, for some strange reason, I was cut off from the entire world and forced to stay home. And I panicked in a sense that I can't go to my studio. I have to make sure that I have art supplies. And since I couldn't be in my studio, I decided that I should work with paint. And so I wasn't sure what to make. So I revisited yet another series. Years and years ago, I was working with these stick figures as sort of a commercial thing, as a form of very, very, very simple expression. And so this was the first thing that I did when I was at home. And I actually, oddly, I painted this one like 5 or 6 times to get it to be, you know, the expression and everything. I know it's a very simple form, but to me, I needed it to be absolutely as simple as possible. But it didn't really talk to me as how I was feeling about my situation at home, about the, I don't know, the change in my life that had come, and for everybody else, they had that as well. So when this one wasn't working for me, and this one was another step in that direction, I then just started working on my brush strokes, and eventually I came to this form. And I had given myself a challenge of working with just these 4 colors. I have a green, it might be hard to see in the slide, but the door and window on this piece are green, and then the other 3 colors. And I set up a set of rules, and I wanted all of these pieces to be exactly the same. And I also felt like, I don't know, like woodblock imitation was where I was going with this. So there was a little bit of that. And so I worked a small series, and these are large scale. These are 30 inches by 40 inches. And I felt that if they were small, they wouldn't have the same impact and have the same sort of feeling that I get when I look at these. The house representing not exactly home, but representing the isolation, not only of my household, but of anybody's household, and sort of isolated in a place that was new and distant from what I had known only at that point, only a month or 2 ago, as the world around me. And so I made this triptych. Oh, here's another one. I was very careful in the early ones. I made sure to make sure the proportions of these, which are on the page, are pretty small, to this, which is pretty large on the page. I wanted the proportions to stay the same. Somehow that regularity and other rules that I was creating for how I made these stayed true throughout the process. Here's the triptych in its entirety. And there was a point where I think I got the houses left my system. They came back. This I painted on around election day. But they left my system, and I felt like I needed to paint something else to get the same idea across. I started these trees. Actually, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to this. This is where I went next. Summertime, everybody was posting images of sunsets. And I felt that this, again, the quietness of the sunset. But then as November and December came along, I felt the need, I don't know, for Christmas trees. I don't know where that came from. But I started this, and I wanted it to be very, very, very graphic. I did not want it to be essentially, completely realistic. So I created this, and I liked the space, but I liked this more. The feeling I get, that I've gotten in Central Park when it snows, and I'm there by myself because New Yorkers won't venture into the park in the cold. So I kind of get it to myself when I live there, and also maybe up in the Sierras, like Tahoe. It's either a starry night or it's a snowy night. And in this particular one, as I see I'm getting close to running out of time, I wasn't necessarily satisfied with the proportions on this, and I really like to experiment with everything. If I go back to the ceramic ones as well, I do things over and over and over again to make sure that, to me, the proportions are right, that makes everything is right, the size, the color. So I did this one also as a square version. I don't think I've shown this to the world before, this particular one, but I like this one better. Somehow it reads to me a little bit better. I think of these, even though it's a tree and even though it's a house, to me, a lot this body of work feels, cohesive because it speaks to a certain, I don't know, quietude, certain solitude, and not necessarily in a depressing way, because I thrive in a certain sense in my aloneness when I'm, forced to be at home alone, since I do live alone. But at the same time, these paintings are unusual for me because I didn't get the same kind of feedback that I normally do, because I only could post them on Facebook. And on Facebook, I don't get actual criticism when I post it. People say, "Oh, I love it," but I can't do anything with "I love it." But I can do things with it looks like a bottle, or it looks like a breast, or or what were you thinking, and so on. So when people are blunt, then it gives me something to go from. So that's the series. Here are some of the rehearsals that I tried at other points to do this a different way. So now I yield the rest of my time to Pamela and to Mary. And I think we're doing questions later.
Pamela, you need to unmute.
Okay, well, thank you, Robbie. We will be opening the floor to questions later on, but we have a few extra minutes because we designed this program to have 3 artists and we have 2 today. So I'd just like very briefly, Robbie, for you to talk about how your being an artist affects your being a gallerist.
Pardon? Say that again.
How does your being an artist affect your running a gallery and curating? Or are you impartial?
Am I impartial? No. I try to be objective. You know, this gallery, actually part of the mission of the gallery from the start was to be a gallery from the artist's perspective. When I hung the work, I know a lot of curators say to the artist, give me your work, you know, just deliver the work and then we install it. And the artist loses control at that point. I really like to work with the artist to install things as close to their vision as possible with the constraints of the size and shape of the gallery. But if we have to build special things, I know we have actually repainted entire walls, put in new lighting and things like that, built special pedestals so that the artist can show her work exactly as envisioned or as close to as possible. So I think being an artist really, I think, led me in that direction. That, you know, I understand that a lot of artists are control freaks and don't like it when the curator tells them what to do or how to present their work. So I guess that's that.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll return to that later. But I'd like to turn to Mary White and to preface this transition with the fact that when Robbie and I talked initially about his being in our event, and he told me he was going to show his body of houses that was very different from the thinking that I was going by, but very inspiring considering what we're doing, what we're going through with the pandemic. And so I wanted another artist who would use that same imagery sometimes and would be a counterpoint to Robbie. And I came up with Mary White. Take it away, Mary. You ready?
Hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought I'd like to start outside my house because my recent project is bird baths. So I've been making bird baths for homes for birds to come to and enjoy in the water. So I think of the metaphor as, let's see, I think of the metaphor of homes as a fairly large metaphor for lots of creatures in my work. I'll share the screen, show you some images of the kinds of work that I've been doing that deal with, in my website kind of shows a lot of images that I have kinds of projects. I do big outside projects. This is a Akataka tribe project in New Orleans. This one's big sculptures down in New Mexico, in Mountain View for the Silicon Valley, and flood markers in Boulder, Colorado, and then some really big house forms when I was living in Ireland. And now I'll show you some of so I do a lot of different things, but the house forms have been important to me. And Pamela, I didn't get my timer started, so I want you to make sure you're timing me and give me 2 minutes.
Between Shelley and me, we'll get you.
Okay. So I have worked on the house form for a long time, and the next, this is one that I did just a couple of years ago, and I showed it up in Sebastopol the day before the fire happened. So this one's called What Do You Take With You? So I'm using the house as kind of a metaphor for the spirit, and often they're empty and they're made out of recycled glass. And I had an experience in the late 90s. Well, I grew up, my father was a floodplain water resources person. So we spent most of our childhood trudging around floodplains. But I wanted my work to be related to recycled materials and to do what I say do what I do instead of what I say I'm going to do, because I was running the glass program at San Jose State. I met Jo Hansen, and she had started Women Eco Art Dialogue in 1998. And I joined the board. So I decided from then on, I would just work with recycled glass materials. Living on fault lines in Pacific currents it's about 60 inches high. It's about the fragility of our choice to live in a multiple death zone of the Bay Area. Kenosis, what do we take with us? Like we have, all these things, but what is the spirit of home that we take with us? Rolling towards sustainability, I made the base out of glass and clay, together recycled powdered crushed glass and clay, and I got really interested in how you make bricks out of that. And then the other one, the one on the right is made out of farm, and it was from farm to home, the Silicon Valley, which is just, was one of the richest, deepest agricultural areas in all of California. And now they grow computer parts. Then when I was in Ireland, there was a lot of building, but it was 2008-9, and the buildings just got stopped. So I projected images on the floor from the ceiling of images of the people who had lived, who'd been displaced, but there was no place for them to go. So very similar to here. And I think joining WEED was really important because it was kind of back to my roots. My father used to tell me as a child in Boulder, Colorado, that the flood water was going to go up to the very top of this 18 feet, the 500. So the GRO is at the 50-year level. So we built this in Oakland, a flood marker that is on the creek in Boulder that shows how high the flood would go when the flood comes, and it's never really come. It's only gone up to the 50-year mark. I started doing bird baths, and I really like them. They're just ways to talk to people about wild bird habitats, and I use solar pumps on them. So it's a way to have a conversation about habitats that affect wild creatures. Andre Thompson, who teaches Eco Art Matters, is a wonderful friend and mentor. And we built a big place that was kind of a home as well as a water source out of an old satellite plate for pioneers. So now I thought I'd go to stop sharing and go to the WEED website, because now I'm in the midst of COVID. I've started working much more on women in eco art dialogue. And I just want to show you, it's a virtual site that used to have a very lovely printed directory that we used to print. And now it has 4 components. It has the home, the magazine with an issue coming out pretty much every year, and then a directory of women artists. And then we have events. We have an art and activism series, and it's a membership organization. Joe Hansen, who started the organization, said, never, never, never should we charge membership. We had a big conversation about that for years, and we finally have started charging a small membership of $45 a month. But the idea is to have women from all over the world enjoy and each other's community, but also give them an opportunity to be seen by curators for shows that might involve ecological work. This latest issue has a big article by Mildred Howard, who is a Berkeley resident and wonderful artist. So we're now in the mission of trying to make weed much more international and also to reach out to younger artists of diversity. And I can just show you the directory page, and we're actually raising money to change the directory page. But we have all artists, seed artists, legacy artists, and you can, some of the legacy artists are deceased, but they were the early land artists like Jackie Bruckner from New York, well, let's go to Joe Hansen. Joe Hansen is one of our founders, and she went out in San Francisco. She was a community organizer, but she was also a artist. And so she got her degree at San Francisco State, and she said, let's go sweep the streets. So she started an initiative to sweep the streets of San Francisco. And it turned into Recology, which is that wonderful artist in residency program at San Francisco, in San Francisco. So this has just been a really big part of my life right now. We have a show which is related to the extraction extraction, but we wanted to give it a hopeful title, and where the show is going to be at Gallery Route 1. So it's yet another collaboration. Joe Hansen and Susan Steinman and Gallery Route 1 have had many collaborations. And so this show will be in September, October, and we'll have that nice artist space in the back. And we're looking at a call for people who'd like to enter, women who self-identify as women, as the show, which is called From Extraction to Regeneration, to Restoration to Regeneration. So I think that's about my time.
Mary, where will we find the call to enter, those of us who are interested in doing it?
Okay. We sent out a newsletter, but you know what? That's a good point. And I'm not sure I can find it on the website, but we'll make sure that it's posted under events in the website. Give me a couple of days.
Okay.
Good point, Pamela. Thank you.
Oh, sure. And Shelley, we will have it posted on the website for Gallery Route 1, right?
Well, right now the call has gone out from Weed. I don't know. Would it go out from Gallery Route 1 too? That's a good question. We'll have to talk about that.
You're shaking your head, Shelley, no?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that those arrangements are handled behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're really looking forward to this collaboration and very excited about it.
Great. Well, it looks like we have more time than we had thought, which is great. So I would like to return to Robbie and have you address a little bit more about the gallery. Shows that are coming up, things that you're thinking about, and how you would prepare a new artist to meet you. You're muted.
Unmute myself. There we go. Am I talking? No, I'm not. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. You can hear me. Oh my gosh, technology. Yes, while you were just talking about, while Mary was talking about that show, I remembered we have a call for artists that I've extended. We do this program, the Emerging Artists Program, where people with little or no showing experience apply to the gallery. It's a 3-month, it goes from now till the end of June as a professional development course where esteemed mentors such as Pamela Blotner, Elizabeth Addison, and me, and usually Anna Vaughn, who is the art department chair at Laney College. We meet with the artist every other week and help them prepare the body of work, their artist statement, their artist bios, and whatever else they need. So we do critiques every other week. This year, the call was supposed to be, everyone was supposed to apply by last Monday, but we didn't get enough applications, quite frankly. So I've extended it till next Thursday. We do charge $500 for the course part, but it ends with a month-long show for the month of July. Last year we had 5 amazing participants. This year I hope to have at least 3 that are good. The artists who apply, they have to have the skills. I mean, they're not beginning artists. They're just inexperienced in the art world. And that's something that part of the reason I developed this was over the last several years, people constantly come into the gallery who do not know how to approach a gallery. We get emails where people walk in and say, hey, I might make art. Can I get a solo show? Hey, you've never met me before, but will you give me your show? So there's ways to approach a gallery. There's ways to prepare your body of work and so on, and to prepare a presentation and to learn about how to talk to a gallery and how to get in, essentially. So that's part of what I like to do as a gallerist is to, we have developed the best way for us, but that isn't necessarily the best way for all galleries. So that is the emerging artist part of the gallery. The gallery, another thing I want to point out about the gallery is the fact that I don't like going to galleries where the art was designed to sell, where you just see artists cranking out stuff based on their marketing strategy. And a lot of the galleries that I have visited, I feel like the work is, I don't know, it's copying famous artists. It's style without any real substance. And those are the larger galleries in the expensive neighborhoods of places like New York. And I felt that my gallery couldn't work that way, partially because I don't have a list of collectors. And I don't know if my neighborhood can sustain those kind of prices anyway. But I want art in the gallery that is made from the heart, from the creative part of the brain, with no care about whether or not the art will sell. I think if it's good art, much of the time it will sell. But we also, as artists, make things that nobody would ever want in their living room, either for size considerations or for content. And you see those pieces in museums, not in homes. So if I'm going to have a gallery space with that kind of work that I can't sell, then we have to make work another way. And that's why I have half of the space is the gallery shop, where we bring in craft, pottery, woodwork, textiles, jewelry, etc., so that should support gallery shows that don't sell. It's always disappointing to a certain degree when work doesn't sell, but also we understand when, for example, we had a wire sculpture that was 20 feet long. Obviously, or most likely, no one's going to buy that to put in their house. And so we have to have the other part of that.
Hey, thank you, Robbie. I should mention that that the Abrams Claghorn Gallery is located at 1251 Solano Avenue in Albany, California. So that's across the Berkeley Albany line. Okay, at this point in the remainder of the hour, we'd like to open up the floor to those of you who are listening, who in our viewing audience, as they say on the news. And anything that you would like to say, anything that you would like to share, opportunities or ideas or resources.
If you would like to share, raise your hand like this, and then we'll call on you. Okay, MK, please unmute.
Mute.
There you
How
go.
about that? Pretty cool. I'm in Seattle. Happy spring to everybody. It's the vernal equinox today. Spring came at 8 o'clock this morning, our time. Whoopee! It's raining here, of course. I've been wondering, because I'm a practicing artist, and wondering if anybody's given any thought to doing a show concerning pandemic art. Because I know that myself, I mean, I've been stuck in here for more than a year now, and I've produced an enormous amount of work, and mostly to keep myself busy, because it's a meditation of sort. I do a lot of stitchery, I do some painting, excuse me, and drawing. Shelley's somewhat familiar with my work. And I visit Point Reyes as often as I can. It's been more than a year now because of the COVID and so on and so forth. But I've been sort of dropping lines here and there up here about pandemic art. I would think it might be very interesting to know if the stuff that people are turning out during this time is typical or new, or so on and so forth. So just throw that in.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, MK. Did you want to address that, Robert?
Yeah, so that has been a pretty common theme, at least in the Bay Area, since the summertime. Aside from a couple of Facebook groups that are dedicated to people posting their art in the time of quarantine, as the title of one of those groups, we did a show back in our September show was based on that theme, and Show Gallery, SHOH Gallery in Berkeley, I believe, did a show on that theme, and probably a few other galleries have done a, it's a good idea, because I think that, the artist community has reacted to this social change that is due to the pandemic and the resulting economic and socio-economic crisis, with a lot of art. So yeah, there's a lot of shows out there. I don't know who is currently calling for that work, but I wouldn't be surprised if you go on to any of the call for artists sites that you're going to find something.
Yeah, I'll second that. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is the page for CAFE, CAFE, accent on the E, .org. And it's a great resource for shows and opportunities. And I subscribe, and I have seen a couple of shows just in the past couple of weeks advertising the topic in various and sundry different ways. So you should look out for that.
Thanks.
Shelley.
I just wanted to ask Robert about his work. It looks like you were creating your house paintings, houses on the hills, with stencils.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. At least the first ones, I wanted them to be exactly the same, so I created stencils. After that, I did some of them with just using tape and a ruler to make sure that they were all exactly the same size. At some point, I became disorganized in the mess of my studio, and I lost the stencils periodically, where for a little while I found them again. I don't throw anything away, it just gets buried in the stuff, but yeah.
I guess what I wanted to know is if I noticed like the edges where the paint was applied to this with the stencil were a little fuzzy, and wondered if that was part of your aesthetic.
Yes, absolutely. I don't like to leave things to chance. I don't like to be, so yeah, so that was very deliberate. or at least I knew it was going to happen. I don't, the exact messiness was not necessarily deliberate, but I created the stencils in such a way that that was okay. And that was part of the plan.
All right, thanks. Let's go to Jamie. Please unmute.
Okay. Hi, Robert. My question is for you. We at California Society of Printmakers do jury and work from artists from all different backgrounds. Some are go all the way through their masters and more, and very often they're self-taught, but somehow find their way to our organization. And I'm so happy to hear that you're spending time with these artists to tell them the ropes and teach them how to present themselves, and hopefully to write an artist statement and to not be afraid to do that. I always, as an artist, think that that's such a great tool, because for myself, being around a bit of the time early on, we really didn't have a chance to put our information about the art in, other than sending some slides. And now here you have the time to have a voice that goes with that artwork, and it's rare and it's an opportunity. So it's great for you to show these artists how to move through the system and present themselves properly. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Mary.
Isn't there a presentation today at the gallery for Elizabeth and Vicky's work?
Yes.
Hi.
Elizabeth Addison and Vicky Gunter are our current show in the gallery at 6 p.m. on Zoom. They will be doing an artist talk about their show, One Nest Earthworks. It's a collaborative show where one of them created their work and the other one then created work based on that. I think that's the simplest way. The show is behind me, but I strongly urge anybody who hasn't been here to see it in person. This is a show, we've made videos on our website. We have a video of the show. I have 360-degree photos of the show. We have all sorts of images, but you got to see it in person. I think that the scale of of Elizabeth's images and the scale of Vicky's ceramics, pictures just don't do it justice. No matter the detail, you're looking at it on a screen that is just a few inches tall. And so, yes, they will be talking tonight about how this project came to be and all the other details. And please come to the talk. And then when you're done tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., come to the gallery.
I should add that I see that Elizabeth Addison is part of our audience today. So Elizabeth, if you'd like to say a few words.
And Vicky.
Oh, and Vicky's part of it too. Okay, I didn't see you. And Vicky as well, if you'd like to say a few words or give us other than what's already there to tantalize us.
I would just like to be supportive of Robbie at this moment, because what he's done is just so supportive of women and artists in the community. And it was a pleasure to hang a show with him, and, come support the gallery. Do whatever you can to keep it going, keep it there. People, we've had some people say, there's this whole thing of people saying, well, maybe I'll wait till after the show's over and buy things. But, so it all goes to you. Well, they wouldn't be standing there seeing it and being inspired to buy it unless the gallery was there. So please support it. And Robbie, I love your triptych. I feel like you're creating the sense of isolation in such a simple way. I feel like it's very effective. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All I have to say is ditto to all of that. And a big thanks to Robbie also for supporting, local contemporary artists and artisans. It's really important, especially during these times. And also to aggressively promote not just eco and artists' rights, but civil and social rights too, in really trying to create a diverse audience. And, the show that I hung with him last year through Northern California Women's Caucus for Art, for whom I'm the newish exhibitions chair. We had to pivot at the last moment, as everything was shutting down. And Robbie was wonderful to work with and so supportive of everyone. And we made it up as we went, and it ended up being very successful and sort of setting the tone for what we're living with now and what will carry forward. A lot of good things came out of that. Also, I really enjoyed seeing your paintings and your transition from 3D to 2D. And it is almost printmaking. I would say when you're using a stencil or you're doing frottage or anything like that, that's printmaking too, and mediating the mediating. But did you address also that you're using house paints?
Oh,
Or talk about that?
I didn't
Which I think
mention
is
that,
wonderful.
but yes, I'm using house paint. I went to Home Depot and I bought gallons of paint. Sometimes you can get paint that are mistakes. So instead of $30 for a gallon, you can get for $5. And that's the green color that I have was there as a mistake for a $5 for a gallon bucket. And I like them better. They seem less plasticky than regular acrylics. Maybe they're more archival too. I don't know. But it's good for the cheapskate in me. I am, though, currently looking for more eco-friendly paints.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have a few more minutes in the hour before we have to fold our tents. And any other questions for Mary, for us, Elizabeth?
Well,
It's more of a comment. I love the glass house in particular. It just really struck my heart. Such beautiful work that you're doing and so meaningful.
Yes, and Mary, this is Vicki. It was so great to see you again. And I've been familiar with your art and I've always just loved it, but I never knew what an impressive background you have. I didn't know all of those wonderful things about you. So that was really cool.
Well, Vicki and I met in the garden of a fundraiser for the botanical gardens at Lake Merritt.
Yeah.
In a show where they were doing ceramic lanterns from Laney, I guess, or
yeah.
And I was projecting a image of white pelicans onto a screen in the middle of the garden. It was really crazy to try to do it. It was kind of the story of the white pelicans who migrate to Lake Merritt and where they come from. So Vicki's husband was particularly helpful too, because we had some technical issues. Of course,
he always
what was
comes
I thinking
through.
to do a projection in the middle of a rainy garden?
That's great. Guys, we do have someone else who wants to speak and see if we can get some more people in there. Annie Troy, straight from New York City.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you for this presentation. Thank you, Pamela. And Mira, I just had a question. Would you mind sharing us what it's like to work with recycled glass and your process?
Oh, would I like to show you? Well, right now, here's my, let's see, here's my bin of old window panes from Richmond greenhouse that was torn down to build housing, and they never built the housing. It was the Miraflora greenhouse. So somebody called me. So I went out with a truck and I got probably, I don't know, 8 yards of old window panes. So it's very appropriate. So I take the old pane and then I cut them into circles. So this big grungy old glass, and then I melt them flat and then I melt them into ceramic molds. So I still use my old ceramic skills. I have to make very big molds. But
It's
I
a wonderful
do a lot of
medium.
glass blowing, but I like working with, it's like Robbie said, you know, you give yourself parameters. So my parameter is that I only work with used materials. I don't go buy new glass if I possibly can help it.
Great, thank you.
You all have great energy.
This seems like a good opportunity to repeat what I said earlier, and that is that we were going to feature printmakers for our next meeting, which is on April 17th. Is that right, Shelley?
Yes.
Because we will have Mary Eubank, and we will have the National Printmakers. Jamie Tabak just spoke in a show, but there will be a gallery event surrounding them. So we're still tossing around different ideas for what we'd like to see and who we'd like to hear from for next month. So if you would like to be featured, or if you have ideas, California Society of Printmakers, that's what it is. So if you have ideas of people who would be great to talk to us, please let me know. You can email Shelley at Gallery Route 1, or me, Pamela Blotner at gmail.com. Shelley.
Okay. So I guess we're wrapping up, unless there's any.
Just for Annie, this was made with old window glass. It's a house on wheels. It's an
That's
old roller
amazing.
skate.
Is that?
So,
A tiny house.
I use a lot of silicone glue. That's just
Thank you, interesting, really wonderful.
I would love to see you actually do a video. Show us how you make those little bricks and things.
Mhm.
to follow up on her question.
Good idea.
Well,
All right.
thank you. It's been an honor to be included next to Mary White and to talk here. So thank you, everyone, and for your kind words and everything else as well.
Well,
Thank
it's
you for
an honor
coming.
to be next to Robbie. I've watched the gallery continue to grow and blossom. So important space and place and home. That's what we were talking about today, was homes. You're creating a home for these young artists and neighborhood artists, and Weed's creating a home for women working with ecological issues, and we're all in that process.
And the Women's Caucus for Art is
Yes.
a home for women artists, and the Printmakers group is a home
Yeah.
as well. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I would like to also let everyone know that Gallery Route 1 is actively seeking new artist members, and we're accepting applications for this period through the end of March. So you can go to the galleryroute1.org website to find out more about that. And really like to thank everyone for showing up today, and especially Robert Abrams and Mary B. White. And thanks to Pamela for pulling this all together and being our host. And I'd like to say that if you were moved by today's presentation and would like to support the work that Gallery Route 1 does to bring art to the community, then please visit our website, galleryroute1.org, to make a donation. Make a note in the comments that your donation was for Artists Exchange. And thank you again for coming, and we hope to see you next month on April 17th. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, wonderful.
So